Hi players, bonjour from Geneva, my name is Safir and welcome to Board Game Co. Today I'm going to have for you a how to play for Nemesis Retaliation that was designed by Adam Kvapinski and published by Awaken Realms. Before we're getting started, a huge shout out to Baggern or Badgern, that is the living breathing encyclopedia in the Nemesis Retaliation Discord channel of Awaken Realms. This guy is absolutely amazing, thank you so much for checking out my video. And also to Pavel, the designer of Stalker and also part of the development team of Nemesis, just again for checking out my video and correcting different mistakes that I've made there. Ready to see how it goes? Let's get to it. Alright guys, so let's start by going over everything that you can see right now on your screen, starting with the left side. So over here we're going to have three types of dice: yellow for noise, red for shoot, and purple for burst. Next to it we have the tray with different tokens that are going to serve us during the game. We'll see it of course during the how to play. Then we have the models and also the tokens that are representing them, like the queen, the drones, the adults, and also the larva. Next to it we have a few cards, so we have three types of items: red, green, and yellow. Then we have event and attack decks, and pay attention that those actually correspond to the type of the intruders that we're going to fight against. And of course with the basic version of Nemesis, those are called the Prime Blood. Also we have support equipment, serious wound, and contamination cards, and pay attention that their backside is actually like a normal action card. All the cards that I've just mentioned should be shuffled. Next to it we have the scanner and also two other types of tokens, like the suffocating and also the data tokens. Moving on to the other side of the board, we're going to have exploration deck that is of course again shuffled. Four types of tiles that are actually representing the rooms: question mark, A, B, and C, that correspond of course to the different sections that we have in the facility. At the bottom, not sure that you can see it, but we'll have shuffled corridor tiles. And pay attention that I'm not playing with the deadly mode. For that you can consult the rulebook on page 40. On the main board itself, we have a few elements as well. Starting with the left side, again, we're going to have the round track. We have the Autodestruction token, the round marker, the lander token, a random mission task, and also a universal marker that is going to be on the first position of the objective choice. Moving on a little bit more to the middle, we have four tokens of each type of the tactical gear tokens that we have. Those are ammunition, grenades, med pack, and also oxygen. In the landing zone, we'll have all the characters that are going to participate in this game. Obviously now you can understand that in this how to play we're going to have two characters, the officer and the recon. And from the landing zone we'll need to randomly draw three corridors. Now pay attention that if you have this symbol of a corridor, that means that it is an open door. And of course if you have the standard edition you can just leave it as is, or if you have the terrain pack you can simply put this miniature that corresponds to an open door. During this video unfortunately you're going to see that this corridor tile was accidentally placed on the other side, so it's not going to completely affect it, but just for you to know that it is supposed to be on its normal side. That means a side that actually has a number that is not 0. Moving on to the upper part of the board, we'll have of course the three different sections. On all of them we're going to have a life support token that is starting on its inactive side. Of course the other side represents that it is active. On the A section we'll also have a random robot card and also two tactical gear tokens, ammunition and oxygen. Moving on to section B, we'll have this hibernatorium token that again is starting on its inactive side, and we'll have two anti-aircraft tokens that are supposed to be randomly placed on top of each other without of course any of the players knowing what is the order. Also we have the undiscovered hibernatorium token, and again we're going to have a robot, but only the first part of it because we still don't know which robot it is. Moving on to section C, we'll have a shuffled queen health deck, also 5 tokens of eggs, and a universal marker on the queen's hits track that is starting on position 0. On the board itself, and of course it's going to go out a little bit later, we have the queen is alive help sheet, and of course this is double-sided. On the other side we have the queen is dead, and this help sheet is going to help us understand what is going on in different situations in the game. Moving on to the bag itself, the first tokens that are going to be there are an empty token, then 2 random larva tokens, 3 random adult tokens, and for each character in this game we're going to add 1 more random adult token. Obviously because we're having here 2 players, we're going to add these 2 tokens, and everything we can place in the bag. Moving on to the player setup, well, I skipped a few phases over here, obviously, but the first thing that we will do is to randomly give each player one of these help cards that have a number. Again, we have here 2 players, so one of them will be number 1, the other one will be number 2, and that is also going to help us understand who is going to pick first in the drafting phase. So we have drafting for the characters themselves and also for some support equipment. On top of that, each player is going to receive 1 random mission objective card and 1 random private objective card. Then each character in this game has actually one of their own character item that they're going to just add to their player board. Here in the case of the officer, we have a sort of shotgun, and pay attention that we do have this kind of slot that represents the ammunition tactical gear token. So we're simply going to take one from the supply and place it over here. Then we're going to set the oxygen dial into 7. We'll take 1 universal marker and place it at the leftmost space on the health track. Here on the left side on the tactical belt, you'll be able to take any kind of combination of tactical gear tokens, but they do recommend that in the first game you will take 1 of each type. After that, each player is going to take all their 10 action cards. So again, pay attention that it also color matches the character as well, of course. You're going to shuffle the 10 cards, and from that you're going to draw 5 cards into your hand. At the end, the player that has help card number 1 is going to receive the first player token, and we can start the game. In Nemesis Retaliation, each player is going to assume the role of a Marine squad member that is arriving to the facility with certain objectives that most of the time are not actually going to be aligned with the objectives of the other players. In this game, we're going to have a series of rounds, and in each round, we're going to have a few phases. The first phase is the player phase, where each player, starting with the first player and going clockwise, is going to take 2 actions, and after that they're going to suffer from loss of oxygen if they're situated in a section that has the non-active life support system. After that, if they're situated in a room with a fire token, they are going to lose 1 life. Players are going to continue taking turns until they're simply not having any more action cards in their hand, or they just decided to pass. After all the players have decided to pass, that is going to be the end of the player phase, and we're going to move on to the intruder phase. In the intruder phase, first of all, each intruder that is situated in a room with a fire marker is again going to take 1 damage, and then each intruder that is situated in a room with 1 or more characters is going to resolve an attack. After that, we're going to have the event phase, where we're going to draw a random event card and resolve whatever we have over there. And after that, we're going to continue to the bag development, where we're going to simply take a random token, and then according to what we have drawn, we're going to add more tokens into the bag. Finishing with the event phase, we're moving on to the last phase, and that is the cleanup, where first of all, the first player token is going to move on clockwise to the next player. Then we're going to refill our hand by drawing cards, and then we're going to have time advances. That means that the round marker is going to go 1 step down. The game is going to finish in one of 2 ways. The first one is that we have actually finished already the 14 rounds. In that case, the time is up, and all characters that did not manage to escape or to hibernate are actually beyond saving and will be considered dead. The second possible way to end the game is if all characters have actually died or managed to escape or hibernate. In order to win the game, and pay attention that multiple players can finish this game as winners, a player will have to answer 3 conditions. The first condition, that they have actually managed to escape by the different ways, like with the lander, or they managed to hibernate in the hibernatorium. The second condition is that they have fulfilled one of their objectives that they have been dealt during the setup. And the third condition is that they managed to survive the infection and the eclosion procedures. More about that towards the end of the video. Now, this how to play is going to be a little bit tricky because we have a lot of things over here that actually connected to each other, but I'm going to try and show it to you in the clearest way as possible. So let's start actually with talking about all the different actions that we can take on our turn, and then move our way and discover more elements to this game. So one of the most basic actions that we have that is going to actually be connected to many other things is movement. And we have 2 ways when we want to move. One of them is a regular movement where we will need to discard only 1 action card from our hand, and the other one is make a move cautiously, which will cost us 2 action cards. So let's start with resolving a normal movement, and with that we're going to take one of the action cards that we have in our hands and just discard it. Now, I'm not here to give you any kind of strategical advice, so it doesn't really matter which card we just discarded. We'll talk about different action cards a little bit later throughout the video. When we want to perform movement, we have a certain sequence that we'll need to resolve, and it's going to be a little bit like a flow chart. So the first thing is to choose a direction. Now basically we can move into any direction that we want, as long of course as we have a corridor that is leading from our room, and on top of that the door has to be open. If a door is closed, we will not be able to go through that corridor. So we're deciding to go with the officer throughout this direction right over here. The second thing that we'll need to do is to resolve opportunity attacks. This happens if in the room where we're starting the movement we have an intruder, or we have one or more intruders in the corridor where we're passing through. Now, since this is not the situation, I'm going to skip that, but I'm going to go back to it a little bit down the road. The third thing that we have is to see the effect of our movement. So here we have 2 options. The first one is movement to a room that we already have discovered, but this is the beginning of the game, so we have none of those. And the second one is to explore. So let's start with the exploration sequence and then walk our way a little bit backwards into moving into a room that we already explored. In that case, after we have chosen the direction and everything, we're going to draw one of these exploration cards and we're going to resolve it. We're going to place this exploration card right over here, and let's see what does it say. First of all, the way that we're going to orient it is according to the symbol that we have right over here on the turn track. So you can see that this symbol that points to the north is actually correspond to the same direction of this symbol that we have on the board itself. After that, at the topmost part of the card, it's going to tell us if we're going to place one of the rooms from the A, B, or C section, or a question mark room. As you can see, the board is divided into 3 parts. Section A is the leftmost, so we can see everything that is below this part of the section board. In the middle, we can see section B, and to the right, we have section C. So now it says that we'll need to place a room that corresponds to one of the sections. Since we are now exploring a room that is in the A section, we're going to draw one of the rooms with the letter A behind it. So we're going to place this room just like this, again orientated according to the map itself. And then we'll need to also attach the different corridors. Now pay attention that we will not be able to place a corridor that is leading outside of the facility. So over here we will not be able to add the left corridor because it's going to lead outside of the facility. What we will be able to do is to add the right corridor. So again, we're going to draw a random corridor. Let's see what we're going to have. And we're going to add it exactly in the same position as we can see on the diagram on the card. In our case, it's going to be just like this. After that, we need to see if we have any kind of markers or tokens on the card itself, either inside the room or in the corridors, and add them. In our situation, we don't have something like that, but if we're taking another card, just like this one, for example, we can see that in the room we would have needed to place 1 fire token and also 1 noise marker. Again, this is not our situation, but just for you to know that this is a possibility. After that, we're going to perform the movement itself. So let's place our character. And also it reminds us that if we have moved cautiously, we would have added one of these secure markers. So now going backwards, let's say that we would have discarded 2 of these action cards. Now will be the time to add one of these secure tokens, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. So you know what, if you allow me to continue with the teach, let's say that we did discard 2 action cards from our hand in order to move cautiously. Now going further on the card, we have an entrance effect. So over here on this card, it says close all doors around this room and then resolve a hazard. Now, as you can see, we don't have doors that are touching the room itself, so we don't have doors that are around this room. So this door is going to remain open. So now we need to resolve a hazard. Now in general, we're going to have usually 2 types of effects on these cards. One of them is to resolve a hazard, and the other one is to make a noise roll. Let's start with the hazard, since this is what we do have over here on the card itself. When we have a hazard, we're going to consult the help sheet that we have over here. Pay attention that unless the queen is already dead, we're going to use the side that says the queen is alive. Now we have 3 columns over here. One of them is for noise, the other one is for hazard, and the last one is for bag development. What we are interested right now is the middle column. So now what we need to do is to take the Nemesis bag and randomly draw a token from it. Now pay attention that each token has 2 sides. This is one of them, and this is the other side that we have. And when we need to resolve the hazard, we're only interested in this side that we have. Now I know that it might be a little bit confusing according to the picture that we have over here, since it is not maybe the clearest one, but something that is helping is to see how many of these white thingies we have on the token. So it's going to be a little bit easier for us to understand if this is a larva with no white thingy at all, if this is an adult with 1 white thingy, or if it is going to be a drone with 2, or a queen, of course, with 3. Again, what we have drawn is only an adult. So in case of a hazard, when we're going to draw one of these tokens, that means that that specific intruder is going to appear in a room. And we're going to place it in the same room where we are situated, because this is what it says over here on the help sheet. After we have done that, and before we're continuing, we can basically discard this token by placing it at the bottom of the pile that corresponds to that type of intruder. Now, basically, we need to resolve over here an attack, but if you let me, I want to finish with movement and then later move to other things. So let's hold on with that, and with this card, we can basically discard it next to the draw deck of the exploration. So now let's take another example of movement into a room that we already explored. If you allow me, I'm just going to add a room over here, and then we're going to take another example. So the recon player is going to perform movement over there, and pay attention that on this room we cannot secure it, then it doesn't going to give us anything to actually move there cautiously, so we're simply going to discard 1 card and then move. So we've chosen the direction, the door is open, no problem with that. There are no intruders in the room we're moving from or in the corridor, so we're simply going to place our character over here. And then in a normal movement, again to an already explored room, we need to do a noise check. So again, if you allow me, I'm going to alternate the board a little bit so we can have a better understanding. Let's say that this is the situation that we now have. So we have 3 corridors that are attached to our room. One of them is completely empty without any markers in it. The other one contains already 1 noise marker. And the 3rd corridor actually contains 2 intruders, 1 adult and 1 drone. Every time that we are instructed to do a noise roll, we simply need to take the yellow die and we'll need to roll it. What a surprise. And we have different possibilities of outcomes. The first one is that we're going to roll a number. In that case, we'll need to compare that number. Let's say that we have 3 over here. We'll need to compare that number to the numbers that we have on the corridors around that specific room. If we have a corridor that does not correspond to that number, like we have over here, right? Both of them are 4 and we have rolled 3, then nothing happens with those corridors. If we have a corridor that does correspond to that number, then something happens. And now it depends what we have in that corridor. Now again, we have here 3 options. So let's start with the first one. That means that the corridor does contain intruders. In that case, the biggest intruder is going to enter to a room, and that is always going to cause an attack. That again, we're going to see a little bit later. Now, since we have here basically 4 types of intruders, the smallest one is going to be the larva, then we're going to have the adult, then we're going to have the drone, and the biggest one is pretty obvious, the queen. Since both of them right now are not in the specific scenario, we have here the adult and the drone. That means that the drone is going to come into this room. And then again, it's going to trigger an attack. That is the first possibility. The second possibility is that we would have had over here a noise marker. In this case, we're going to again consult what we have over here on the help sheet, and we're going to consult the leftmost column that we have. So that means that we again need to draw a random token from the Nemesis bag, but this time pay attention that we're interested in the other side of the token, not like we have seen before when performed the hazard. This iconography kind of reminds us of a corridor, right? So now it says that we'll need to add to that corridor the number of adults according to the white numbers that we have. Or if we have also red numbers, then on top of that, we're going to add that number of drones. Since this is the token that we have just drew, then we're going to add 2 adults into this corridor, and the noise marker is simply going to be discarded. If this would have been the marker that we have drawn, then we would have placed here 3 adults and 1 drone. The last possibility that we have is if that corridor is completely empty and does not contain any noise markers. In that case, we have just heard something and we'll need to take from the supply a noise marker and place it in that corridor. The next action that I would like to talk to you about, and pay attention that I already changed the rooms, is to place a secure token action. So again, for that we'll need to discard 1 action card from our hands, right? That is the cost that we'll need to pay. And with that, we're going to take one of the secure markers and we're going to place it in the same room where we are situated. Now pay attention that you can do that until you're going to have 3 secure tokens in a room, but you can never exceed that. Now, what does a secure token is going to do? We'll see a little bit later when we're going to resolve some attacks. The next action that I would like to show you is to use the room. In order to do that, we'll need to discard 2 action cards from our hand, and then we're going to basically activate the room where we are situated. Now, we're going to have here a lot of rooms in this game. Obviously, I'm not going to go over all of them, but I think that in most of them, you're going to have basically some options. Over here, it says gain any number of ammunition tokens. So that is something that we'll be able to put in our weapons or in our tactical belt. More about that soon enough. Or we can draw 2 random support equipments and then we can keep one of them and discard the other. So let's say that this is exactly what the Recon player is going to do. Let's take 2 of these support equipment cards, place them face up, and let's see what we have over here. One of them is entrenching tool. The other one is a flamethrower, which is ranged weapon, requires no ammunition and also heavy. Now, every time that we have this keyword heavy, that means that it's going to take one of our places in our hands. Since now the left hand is already occupied, we can take the weapon that we have chosen. Let's take the flamethrower just because, I mean, it's a flamethrower, right? And we're going to put it in the right hand. Pay attention that it does not require any ammunition. And it's important because weapons that do require ammunition, first of all, will be considered always as we have found them with already ammunition. So for example, if we would have found this weapon, we would have taken immediately one of these ammunition tokens and place it at the bottom, just like we can see over here with this marking. But even though this weapon does not require ammunition, for different effects is considered to be completely charged. The next action that is kind of big in this game is to fire. Now we have 2 types of firing over here. The first one is to fire inside a room where we're situated. That is called to fire a shot. And the other one is if we want to hurt some intruders that are situated in a corridor adjacent to our room, attached to our room, that is going to be called fire a burst. So let's start with taking some examples. First of all, important to understand, if it wasn't clear until now, that our characters can only be situated inside rooms. That is not the case for the intruders because they can be situated inside a room or inside a corridor. Now pay attention regarding the intruders limit. A room can hold any number of intruders, while corridor can only hold up to 6 intruders, with the queen actually worth like 4 intruders. So if we have the queen over here, we can have up to 2 other intruders, doesn't matter if it's drone or adults. But if the queen is not here, then we can have up to 6 intruders. Those are, of course, the adults, drones, and larvae. When we want to perform fire a shot, that means that we're going to shoot inside the room where we are situated. We're not going to actually spend ammunition because our weapons is considered to be a very high technology, so one shot is not going to be considered as wasting ammunition. Now on different weapons we're going to have different effects, but just for now I'm going to use one of the cards that actually we didn't see with the officer just to give you the example. So we're going to use the assault assault rifle weapon. Now pay attention that on the card it says shoot. After shooting, that means after we have performed this action, you may spend ammunition in order to shoot the second time at the same intruder. Okay, let's see what does it mean. When we're shooting, we're going to follow a sequence. The first one is to choose a weapon and a target. So no problem, we did that, right? That is the weapon, this is the target. And pay attention that we need to have at least one ammo token on it. Doesn't matter if it is the full magazine side or actually the other side where we have half a magazine, let's call it like that. Then we're going to deal one hit. Now, when we're dealing a hit into an intruder, basically we're going to take a universal marker and we're going to place it right next to it. Then we're going to make a shoot roll. And we have over here 3 options that we can have. The first one is the critical hit, and that means that the intruder is completely dead and we can remove their miniature back to the supply. The second option is this one, that basically means that we've lost too many bullets and we'll need to spend our magazine. So here we have 2 options. If we were on the full side, we need to turn it to the half side. And if this was the situation, then we need to completely take out this token and place it back in the supply. Now basically it means that we don't have any more ammunition for this weapon. The third option that we have is if we would have received one of the numbers that we can see on that die. In this case, if the number that we rolled is lower or equal to the number of hits on that intruder, then that intruder dies and we can place the intruder back in the supply. If it's not the case, for example, we have 1 hit on this intruder and the number over here is 2, then unfortunately that intruder is just wounded but not dead. Now pay attention again that when we go back to the card, we do have the possibility to spend ammunition. That basically means to turn it to the other side in order to shoot again at the same intruder. So we're going to deal 1 hit, right? We're going to take another universal marker and we're going to add it just like this. And then we're going to again roll the die. So we're going to roll it, and let's say that we have resolved 2 just for the example. Since it is equal or lower, as we said before, to the number of universal markers next to that intruder, then this intruder is considered dead and we can remove it completely back to the supply of the intruders. Pay attention please that the damage that I talked to you about now regards only the adults and the drones. Queens and larvas are going to be a little bit different. Regarding the queen, I'm going to explain a little bit later, but for the larva in a room, 1 hit is also enough to kill it, regardless of the number that we rolled when we performed the shoot die. The second type of firing that we have is the bursting. So this is again talking about doing damage to intruders that are situated in a corridor adjacent to the room where we are situated. So again, we're going to have here a small procedure. Choose a weapon and a corridor. No problem about that. Now we do need to spend an ammunition, right? Burst, we're going to shoot a little bit automatic. So again, if we were on the full side, we would have flipped it to the other side. But since this is already the situation, basically we're going to take this token and remove it back to the supply. Now we need to perform a burst roll. So we're going to take this purple die, we're going to roll it and see what is the number that we have. Now we have different outcomes. Basically they're going to variant with their number, but also with number 4, we have that specific symbol. Now that specific symbol around the number correspond to different effects that we might have on different weapon cards, but if on our weapon card we do not have this symbol, then we don't care about it and we're simply going to ignore it. We're just going to take the number of hits that we have on the die. Now, the number that we have on the die is the number of hits that we managed to do to the intruders that we have. Now here we have some restrictions as well. We can only apply 1 hit per adult and 1 hit per larva. I again remind you that 1 hit is more than enough to kill a larva. For a drone, we can apply exactly 2 hits, and for the queen, we can apply any number of hits that we want up to her maximum track. So basically that is going to correspond to what we have over here. But again, as I said, the queen we're going to talk about a little bit later. The next step in this sequence is to resolve the hits. So adults and larvae with 1 hit and drones with 2 hits die. So if we're changing a little bit the scenario, let's say that again we're going to go with the 3, and this was the situation, and I can apply the damage as I want. I'm going to apply 2 damage to the drone itself, so let's place it over here, and then I'm going to choose one of these adults, really doesn't matter which one, and I'm going to apply to it another hit. So now that we need to resolve the hits, adults and larvae with 1 hit and drones with 2 hits die. We can place them back in the supply. Great, so this drone is going to go out. And the same thing we're going to do for this adult. Now that we talked about how we're going to attack, let's see a little bit how the intruders are going to do damage to us. So basically, different effects are going to cause intruder to attack us, but the most common thing is if we have an intruder that is entering the same room as we are. So we've seen it before, let's talk about it again. Let's say that with the exploration, if you remember it from before, we do need to resolve the hazard, and we drew one of the adult tokens. So now we need to place the adult over here, and they are going to attack us. So since we have a secure token and also a character in this room, and we have right now an intruder that came into this room, instead of resolving an attack, we're simply going to take out this token and discard it. Now let's say that this is not the situation, and right now actually an intruder is entering the room from different effect, doesn't matter. Then we're going to resolve an attack by drawing the topmost card of the attack deck that we have and resolve what we have on the card. Now we have different types of attack, but let's see what we have on this one that is called Bite. Here we can see that doesn't matter who attacked us, the queen, a drone, or an adult. If you are heavily injured, then you die. Since this is not our situation, because the health marker is not in the threshold of heavy injured, we're going to ignore that and move on. Otherwise, gain 1 serious wound and 1 contamination. So we have here a few elements, let's talk about them. First of all, when we need to take a contamination card, that is one of the cards that we can see over here, again with the backside that says action, but on the front side it says contamination, and we have this kind of thing that we're actually going to resolve with the help of the scanner that we saw during setup. Now when we need to take a contamination, we're going to simply place it face up right over here in our discard pile. On top of that, we were instructed over here to take 1 serious wound. So again, we're going to go to the deck of cards that says over here serious wounds. We're going to take the topmost card, and let's see what do we have. Over here it says that we have a serious wound in our hand. The use item action costs 1 action card more than it usually does. So in that case, when we're taking a serious wound, that will be a good time to talk about it. We need to place it in the leftmost threshold space of our health track. In our case, we have 3 of those, the green, the yellow, and the red. And since the leftmost one is empty, that means that we don't have a serious wound over there. This is where we're going to place it. So let's remove this universal marker. We're going to place this card right over here. And now what we can see over here is that we have 3 X's in the space of the universal marker that indicates our health. That is because when we're having a serious wound, if our health marker was in one of the slots of that threshold, we're simply going to place this health marker on the right side to where we took the injury. So in our case, it would have been over here. For a different example, let's say that this is now the situation and we need to take a serious hit. Then we're going to take another card and we need to place it in the leftmost threshold that is available. So this one is already occupied. We need to place it over here. In our case, we're going to remove this cube, place the serious wound right over here underneath, and then this marker would have been placed right over here. Pay attention that it is absolutely possible to have 2 serious wounds of the same type. In that case, we are going to slot both of these cards, but their effect are not going to be accumulated. So if we have another serious wound in our hand and we have now a second one, it's not going to be 2 more action cards that we'll need to use. It's only going to be the first effect. Now we have really a different types of cards, but let's take another one just for the example. Let's say that we would have drawn this card that is called Blood Sense. In this case, if it would have been an adult that attacked us, we're going to lose 2 health. So losing 2 health, it's really self-explanatory. We're simply going to move this cube 2 spaces to the right. But if it was a drone or a queen, then on top of the 2 health that we would have lost, if you are moving, place the attacking intruder in the room where your movement ends. It does not attack again. So what does it actually mean if you're moving? Let me take you back to the movement action that we talked about before. And we do remember that on the second step, we have something that is called Resolve Opportunity Attacks. In that step, if there are any intruders in the same room as the character and or in the corridor where we want to move through, for each such intruder, starting with the largest intruders, resolve an intruder attack and do it up to 3 attacks maximum. So again, we're going to take a small example because why not? Let's say that we have this situation and we decide to go with the officer to explore this area. So on top of the usual thing when we're going to draw an exploration card, then we're going to place over here the tile and we're going to add over here the corridors, etc. Before the actual movement, we'll need to resolve the opportunity attacks. So up to 3 times. Now we do have over here 4 intruders and we're going to resolve it only up to 3 times, starting with the largest ones. So we can see that from the 4 intruders that we have, we're going to take 1 drone, second drone, and then from one of the adults. So for each one, we're going to resolve an attack. So 1 and resolve the outcomes, 2 and resolve the outcomes. Don't forget, both of them are for the drones. And then a third one for the adult. And now let's say that this was the third card that we have drawn, the Blood Sense. So of course it's involved one of the adults. To be honest, we do need to choose one of them. Then that intruder is going to move with you to the room where the movement ends. In our case, let's say that we have chosen this adult to attack. Then basically this is how we're going to finish our movement, in case that we're still alive, although I find it hard to believe. The next action that I would like to show you is to play one action card. Now obviously we're going to have here a lot of action cards and we're not going to start dealing with all of them, but I would like to show you some effects that we can find with our action cards that are going to be probably helpful for you guys to understand the game. Starting with the first one that belongs to the recon, and that is the search card. Now in an action card, we might have sometimes at the top right corner of the card this type of icon. This basically says that we can use this card when we are not in combat. Now, our character is considered to be in combat the moment that we are in a room that contains also an intruder. So obviously the blue player over here, the officer, will not be able to use in their turn one of these cards. On top of it, some of the cards, like this one that is called the Chain of Command, we will be able to use as a reaction even when it's not our turn, and that is of course as a reaction to something that is happening. We're going to say it in a few more minutes. First of all, let's concentrate on the search card. So for each item icon in your room, draw one item of the corresponding type, and you may keep one of them and discard the other. So when we're looking at this room, we can see that we have 2 icons. So that means that they're going to correspond to the decks that we have over here. Again, we have 3 types, the green, red, and yellow. So in this room, we can see that we have the iconography of red and yellow. That means that we're going to draw 1 card of each, and we get to decide which one of them we would like to keep. Now, an item, unless it is marked with the word heavy, is going to join our backpack. When a card is reaching our backpack, we're simply going to place it right over here. Now I want to talk about another action that is actually called to use an item card. So again, we're going to discard one of the action cards that we have in our hand, and now we can use one of the item cards that we have. What a surprise, we're going to use this one that we picked, let's say, a round or 2 ago. And here it says that we're going to gain 1 ammunition. Now, when we're gaining ammunition, we're going to take a marker from the supply and we'll be able to place it either in one of the weapons that has a free slot, so just like we have over here on the full side, of course, or if we have in the tactical belt another space that is empty, we'll be able to place it there. And if we're already talking about the tactical gear that we have, let's talk about another action that says use tactical gear tokens. So let's first of all explain what those different tokens mean. So I think with the ammunition, it's pretty straightforward, and we saw it already in different examples. But in general, if the situation is that we have a weapon that does not have ammunition attached to it, that means that it is not loaded. When we're going to use the tactical gear, first of all, we can use as many as we want, as long as we have, of course, this tactical gear, with the ammunition that will allow us to load back a weapon that we have. Pay attention that if we would have had another weapon that uses ammunition, we would not be able to move ammunition from one weapon to another. So ammunition, once it's inside the weapon, it's going to stay there. The next token that we have is the oxygen token. Now basically it's really self-explanatory because we have the +3 on it. Just for the example, let's say that our oxygen level would have been 3. Again, it's just for the example. Then right now if I'm using the oxygen tactic gear, then basically I'm going to discard it in order to put the oxygen level that I have back to 6, or again +3 to whichever number that you have. And of course we cannot pass the maximum of 7. The next one that we have is the medpack tokens. Again, kind of self-explanatory. It's going to heal us up to 2 times. Here I'm just going to remind you that if we have a serious wound, just like we've seen before with the officer, we will not be able to place our health token on that serious wound, but in this situation we'll be able to discard the medpack in order to have 2 more health. The last one that we have is the grenade token. So basically when we want to use it, we're going to choose an adjacent corridor. We're going to roll the burst die. Again, I remind you, it's the purple one that we have seen before. But we're going to add 2 to that result. Then we're going to deal that many hits in the chosen corridor. And pay attention that rolling this symbol is not going to have any other effect. The next action that I'm going to talk about is the trade. And in order for us to perform this action, we need to be inside a room with, of course, at least one other character. When we're going to perform this action, all the characters in the same room may, of course, with a mutual consent, to reveal and exchange items and or tactical gear tokens with the characters performing this trade action. Now pay attention that it does call trade, but you can, if you wish to, just give another character some equipment without receiving anything in return. Let's talk about the next action, and that is to activate the robot. So we have here another element. Let's talk about it a little bit, and that is the robot that we have at the beginning of the game, right over here in the undiscovered hibernatorium area. In the beginning, we know that we have a robot, but in order to make it active, we need to kind of connect ourselves to it. So with the game progresses, and you're going to allow me with your permission to change a little bit the map, and the moment we kind of connected one of our characters into this room, we can take this token and basically discard it from the game. Now, the moment that we have discovered the robot, we're going to reveal the card that we have placed here at the beginning of the game. In our case, it's the securing robot. And with different robots, you will be able to execute different actions. Now, in order to activate the robot, you have 2 ways. The first one is if your character is situated in the same room as the robot. Now, again, we have here different types of robots, so you just need to consult the card in order to understand what the robot can do in that specific game. The second possibility that we have to activate it is remotely if they are in a room with a computer and they discard 1 additional action card. So let's take this room again just for the example that is called Life Support Control A. So we're going to add it right over here to our map, and you can see with the iconography on the right side that we do have here a computer. So right now, if the purple player would have been situated over here, they will be able to activate the robot from distance. Again, that will require of them to spend actually 2 action cards, right? 1 for the action itself of activating the robot, and an extra 1 because we're activating it in a distance. On top of that, if you have a data token, that is something that can be gained by using the server room action, and we do have over here this type of tokens, then characters with this token may activate the robot remotely without discarding an additional card. So it's going to cost you actually only one card for the action itself. Pay attention that the robot comes actually with two tactical gears, as we can see next to the robot. One of them is ammunition, the other one is oxygen. And if a character is in the same room as the robot and they decide to use some of their tactical gear, they can use the tactical gear that is situated on the robot itself. The last basic action that I would like to demonstrate here is the melee attack. Now, pay attention, you guys, that if you really came to a situation that you need to use this type of attack, something is not good over here. I mean, this is really the edge of the edge. So let's take this example again. We have the officer, which is not a good video of how to play for him. He's just suffering, basically. That is situated in the same room with an intruder that is basically a drone. When we're going to perform a melee attack, first of all, we're going to gain a contamination card. So again, we already saw it. It's to draw one of the cards from here. Then we'll need to choose a target. It's very obvious in our case. Then we'll need to deal one hit. We already know how to do it with the universal marker to place it right next to the intruder. And then we're going to make a roll. Now the roll is going to be super similar to what we've seen before, with the difference that with the ammunition symbol, nothing happens. And the rest of it works exactly the same as we've seen with shoot. The thing that we're going to add over here is number 5 in the sequence that is called Intruder Responses or Prevent. So if the intruder did not die, now it's going to try to retaliate. And we have here an option basically. The first option is to put a malfunction token on one of our weapons, which is this kind of tokens that we're going to talk about immediately after. But basically when we decide to place one of these tokens on one of our weapons, that means that the weapon is no longer working and we cannot shoot with it. If we decide not to do that, then we need to resolve an attack, again just like we've seen before, by drawing an attack card and resolving its effects. Now guys, as you have seen, with just covering the basic actions, we actually covered a lot in this game. But still we have some things that are missing, so I would like to address them now. The first thing is what happens actually after we have finished taking our actions. So just as a reminder, we have 2 actions to take, and then we'll need to suffer from oxygen lost if the life support system in our section is not activated. Basically, as we can see right now, the life support system is deactivated in all 3 sections. In some rooms, just like we can see over here, life support control, we will be able to activate it. If we finished our turn and we are situated in a section where the life support is non-active, we're going to lose 1 oxygen. So from 7 in our example, we'll go down to 6. Pay attention that some effects will require of us to exhaust 1 more oxygen. For example, the sprint card of the recon. But if during the turn we would have had a character that is activating a room and decide to go with the effect of flipping this token, so from the non-active to the active side, and that means that if a character is finishing their turn in a section where the life support system is active, they're not going to spend 1 oxygen. Pay attention that not spending is not the same as gaining oxygen. Gaining oxygen is just from effects like we have seen with the oxygen tactical gear token. Of course, at the same time, because I remind you that not all the time you want to be Mr. Nice Guy, you will be able to deactivate the life support system. And again, if a character is ending their turn in that section, they're going to lose 1 oxygen. Regarding the oxygen, if we have a character that arrived to this marker as the oxygen, that means that we don't have any more oxygen with that character. They're going to receive something that is called suffocating tokens. That is the token that we can find next to the board, and they're going to receive it. We're going to see that on it, it says the next time you lose oxygen, you actually die. Discard this token only when you gain oxygen or enter in a section with a life support system that is actually activated. The next thing that happens when you're finishing your turn is that if you finished your turn in a room that contains this fire token, then you're going to suffer 1 damage. Let's move on to the Intruder Phase. So after all the players have performed their turn, now we're going to move on to the Intruder Phase, and the first thing that happens is that if an intruder is inside a room with a fire token, they are going to take 1 damage, again just like we've seen before, with a universal marker. Then the intruder is going to attack. So all intruders attack characters in the same rooms. So let's talk a little bit about prioritizing. Let's say that we have this situation, and right now the officer decided to move to this area right over here, and they kind of triggered an attack from the drone that we can see inside the same room. Basically, the drone has 2 targets, but they're going to first of all target the character that caused this kind of an attack. Since of course it was the officer, then they're going to be targeted. Now going back to the Intruder Attacks in the Intruder Phase, the intruder attack characters in the same room. So obviously the intruder now needs to prioritize one of the characters, since no one triggered their attack, they're actually going to go to the character that is first in turn order. The next thing that happens is the event phase. So we need to resolve an event card. We're going to draw the first card that we have in this deck, and let's see what does it say. This one is called Panic, and we have 3 things to resolve. So first of all, it's going to be the movement of the intruders. Let's understand a little bit how intruders move. So again, intruders, unlike the characters, are going to move from rooms to corridors and from corridors to rooms. Then when they move, they're going to prioritize the nearest possible target that they have. Then if we have a tie, then the character who activated the attack or movement. And if we still have a tie, then out of the possible characters, the one that is first in turn order. Now in this specific card, and allow me to alternate again a little bit the board, now we can see that all the intruders in each corridor that is horizontal are going to move. So again, movement is only going to be 1 step, so from corridor to room or from room to a corridor, but we're only going to move the intruders that are situated in corridors that are horizontal, just like we have over here. Now, this is a great example because basically this intruder needs to decide if they're going to go over here or over here. Pay attention that for them, it doesn't really matter. And on top of that, again, just for the fun of it, let's say, even though we don't have this iconography or this symbol, let's say that we would have had here a closed door. For intruders' movement, it doesn't change anything. And they're going to even move through closed doors. Pay attention that when intruders moving through closed doors, they're going to destroy them permanently. So basically, since no one kind of triggered the movement or the attack, they're going to go to the person that is first in turn order. Since it is still, of course, the officer, they're going to move through this door. We're going to completely destroy it permanently, and then they're going to move into this room, which of course is going to be resolved in an attack because they just entered the room where we are situated. Then all the intruders in every room move. So of course, if an intruder is already inside a room with a character, they will not move. So that is going to leave us these 2 intruders to move. Now basically, again, we have over here 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we have a tie. You already understood that this intruder is going to move to this direction because this is the first player in turn order. And for this one, it's going to be even more simple because 1, 2, 3, 4 is for sure shorter than the other route that we have. So they're going to move 1, and then this guy is going to move 1. The next thing that we have on this card is that each character in a room with an intruder or adjacent to a corridor with an intruder is going to lose 1 oxygen or spend 1 ammunition. Why? Because, I guess that's what Adam Kwapinski decided to. So again, we have many types of cards. I'm not going to go over all of them, but as you understand, it's really straightforward. And on top of that, the thing that is important is to understand here the movement and how does the attack apply. The last thing that we can see is to resolve noise markers in each unexplored corridor. So basically, unexplored corridor is a corridor that does not touch 2 rooms. In our case, this is an explored corridor because on both sides it has rooms. but this and these corridors are considered to be unexplored. After resolving the event card, we're going to have something that is called bag development. So again, I'm going to draw your attention to this help sheet that we have. And again, I just remind you that it depends if the queen is alive or it's dead. We're going to check actually how the bag development is going to go. We're going to draw one random token from the bag, and then we're going to see what is the outcome. The next step in the round structure is the cleanup phase. So the starting player token is going to move to the next player clockwise. Then we're going to draw action cards until we have 5 cards in our hands. And then we're going to have a time advancement that basically means that the turn marker is going to move down to the next number. So we have here a few more things that I would like to talk about, and actually let's start with the round marker, because sometimes it's going to go into a slot that contains another marker. In our situation we have 2 of these markers, either the Autodestruction marker or the Lander marker. So the Lander marker is actually correspond directly to the anti-aircraft tokens that we have over here. That's the anti-aircraft system. And let's just pretend that this marker, that by the way with different actions can move up and down on this track, but let's say that at some point the round marker goes to the same slot as the Lander. At that point we're going to reveal the first token that is right now on top, and then we're going to see what is the result. If the result is an active token, just like we have over here, that means that the anti-aircraft systems are activated and basically it destroyed the Lander. So we're going to take this Lander token and we're going to remove it completely from the game. On the other side, if it was on the inactive, that means that the Lander have landed successfully. And we're going to take the Lander token and we're going to place it in the landing zone. So from this moment, the different characters will be able to escape using the landing zone. Now, the cool aspect that we have over here is that during the game, the players will be able to come over here to this life support control room B and actually using the action there in order to secretly look at the 2 tokens and decide which token they would like to be on top. So that is again something that players can use in order to mess a little bit with each other. When you are instructed to place the Autodestruction token, you're going to see where is the round token situated. Then you're going to count 5 steps and this is where it's going to be placed. So in our case, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and this is where the marker is going to be placed. And then basically when the round marker enters to the same space as the Autodestruction token, then the facility is going to be completely destroyed and the game ends. Let's move on and talk about a free action that we can do in this game, and that is choosing one of our objective cards. So as you understood, it's very important in order to win the game that you have completed at least one of your objective cards. Now, of course, that is something that is going to be checked when the game is going to be finished, but in general, what you will be able to do as a free action is to choose one of your objective cards and discard it from the game without showing the other players. And the first player that is going to do that is actually going to slide this token down and drawing the number of action cards that is stated on that location. So the sooner you do it, you're actually profiting more from action cards, but at the same time, don't forget that you maybe don't want to commit to an objective card too soon in the game. The next thing that I would like to talk to you, if the camera is already fixated on the officer, is something that is called rank. Now, we can see with this number of peeps, let's call it like that, actually what is the rank of that specific character. Obviously, the officer is at the higher rank, and we have the recon character that is in a lower rank. Now, it comes actually to play because some cards will allow you to command characters that are lower in rank than you. For example, if you're going to take the first in command card of the officer, the bottom section says command, choose a lower ranking character in your room or a neighboring one, and make the chosen character to move, shoot, or burst. You make all choices. And this is where the chain of command card that we've talked about before can really be in handy, because here, as you remember, as a reaction, it says when a command card is played on you, you can ignore its effect. Let's talk about another term that we have in these corridors, and that is reinforced corridor. So we're going to take the secure card of the officer, and we can see at the bottom that it says discard one action card. So just in general, even with sometimes when you're playing an action card, you will need to discard in addition one more card to reinforce one empty adjacent corridor that leads to a room with a character or the robot. So we have here a few conditions. Let's see how does it really go. Let's say that the situation is a little bit different. First of all, with the iconography on the card, you can understand that the officer cannot do that if there are intruders in the same room. And we have a character over here, and we don't have anything. That corridor has to be empty in order for us to do that. So right now, if they decide to play this card, what they're going to do is first of all discard any noise tokens that might have been in that corridor. And on top of that, they're going to take this corridor and they're going to flip it to the other side. What does it give you? Basically, as you can see right now, the value that we have with that corridor is 0. And 0 does not appear on the noise die. So that is something that can be super helpful in order to not have too many intruders or to control a little bit the situation. Now, we talked a little bit before about malfunction tokens, and I haven't actually completed talking about it. So some effects are going to instruct us to put these malfunction tokens on different things. It can be on the robot, it can be inside a specific room as a result of an exploration card, or again, different effects. This token actually represents that something is being broken and impossible for us to use. If we have this token inside a room, then the action that is stated on the tile itself cannot be performed. If it's going to be on a heavy item, like we've seen before with the officer, we have the example right over here, then this heavy item cannot be used as well. If it's on the robot, we will not be able to use it, and different effects will allow us to discard malfunction markers. For example, the combat engineer character has a few things of those, or again, using different items, etc. Now guys, we've been dancing around it a little bit, but I think it's time we're going to resolve something, and that is the queen. So let's understand actually how does the queen go into this game. First of all, when we're looking at the help sheet, we can see that when we're drawing sometimes the queen token, we're going to either activate the queen or actually place her in the room or in the corridor and so on. Now, different effects are going to tell us again to activate the queen. Basically, it means one of two things. Either the queen is going to attack the character that is situated in the same room with, or the queen is going to move one space closer to the closest character, or if we have again a tie, then the character that activated that attack or movement, or if we still have a tie to the first character in the turn order, just like we've seen before. When you need to resolve the queen attack, as always, you're going to draw an attack card and you're going to apply that specific damage. Now, the queen is going to operate a little bit differently when it comes to their damage. So basically, if I can draw your attention to this part of the board, we have over here the queen health deck. And basically, the queen is going to die only when this deck has been completely depleted. So every time that we're going to hit the queen, we're not going to put a universal marker next to it like we've seen with other intruders. Actually, we're going to move this universal marker over here one step to the right. Every time that we're going to reach with this marker to this symbol of the skull, we're going to draw the top card and we see what we have on it. On this card, for example, it says discard one additional card and then repel the queen. In our case, this card is going to be discarded, but we're also going to take another card and without looking at it, we're going to discard it from the game. And then we need to repel the queen. It means that we're going to push the queen or any other intruder for that matter one step further away from us. Now, just to make sure that we understand, because sometimes we can do a shoot roll and we're going to have this outcome. That means that immediately we're going to draw a card and we're going to resolve it. So you understand that after this universal marker has reached to the end, we're going to again put it on 0. Killing the queen, you guys, is obviously, as you know it, really almost an impossible mission. If at some point we actually manage to kill the queen, that will be the time when we're going to take the help sheet and we're going to turn it from the queen is alive to the queen is dead, which is basically going to help us to understand what are the different things that we will need to do when we're resolving one of the steps. Now, before we're moving to the end of the game, what I want to show you is what happens when you're taking a damage from a larva. So basically, it's going to be a little bit different because when you are attacked by a larva, first of all, you're going to receive one contamination card that we talked about before. And on top of that, you're going to take this larva and you're going to place it on your character player board. Now, we talked about many elements and aspects in this game, but let's talk about actually winning this game. So at some point, if you see that you have reached your objective and you manage to fulfill it, for example, it can say that you need to fulfill the mission task that is going to be a different card every mission, then you actually need to either hibernate or you need to get out of the facility. In order to get out of the facility, you have three options. Either you're going to use the lander in the landing zone, assuming that it hasn't been destroyed by the anti-aircraft system, or you're going to put yourself into hibernation. Pay attention that in order to do that, this token has to be on its active side, or you will be able to escape through an escape shuttle. Pay attention that after you're using one of these three methods in order to escape, what you'll need to do is to do a noise roll. But here we're going to have a small exception if because of that noise roll you find yourself with an intruder in the same room as the character, the action is going to be considered as unsuccessful and the character still stays in the room. Otherwise, the action is successful and you're good to go. After you manage to escape in one of the three ways, basically you are considered to be out of the game and the other players are going to continue play until the end game itself, which is either after 14 rounds or when the place completely explodes. Another way, for example, for the whole facility to be destroyed is with overwhelming fire. If at any point of the game you need to place one of these fire markers and we simply don't have enough in the supply, then it means that the facility is destroyed and the game ends. Now, after the game ends, the characters that are still alive and manage to escape in one of the three ways, they're performing a small sequence. Each character without a larva on their character board are going to take all their action cards in their hand and the discard pile, and then they're going to perform the infection procedure. The infection procedure basically means to take the scanner that we have over here and take all the contamination cards that we have accumulated, unfortunately, during the game and scan them one by one. If at some point you do see the word infected on one of the cards, you're going to take a larva and you're going to place it on your board. If none of the cards says infected, then you are obviously not infected and you're good to go, and you can place all the contamination cards in your hand at the top of the discard pile. Then we're going to move to number 2, each character that currently has a larva on their character board. So again, let's say that the recon was clean, everything is okay, but the blue player still has one of these larvas. They're going to gain one more contamination card that we're going to draw from this deck. We're going to reshuffle their whole deck, including hand and discard pile, and we're going to perform something that is called the eclosion procedure. Now, pay attention that this infection procedure or eclosion procedures can come out at different parts of the game and not necessarily at the end. Now, in the eclosion procedure, after we have shuffled all of our cards with the newly acclaimed contamination card, we're going to draw 4 cards. If one of them is a contamination card, so we don't need to scan it, just needs to be a contamination card. That means just a card that looks like this. Then basically we die and we are going to replace our character with an adult. Then each character who is still alive is going to reveal and check their objective, and each remaining character who succeeded in completing their objective wins the game. I remind you that it is possible for different players to win the game, but again, this is not a cooperative game. And that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I hope that you managed to learn something new or that you saw something that you like. Take care, and I'll see you next time.